Drew McIntyre addressed the controversy head-on, insisting that the headlines and the backstage whispers are understandable, but that the truth is far simpler than people want to make it. When he assaulted Cody Rhodes with the WWE Championship and drove him through the announce table with a claymore, it wasn't a senseless attack or a publicity stunt. It was a direct act of retaliation born out of a specific sequence of events and, by his account, self-defense. He reminded everyone that he's already walked through a side of the story before, but because fans and media keep circling back to it, he was prepared to lay out the facts again, plainly and without flourish. He reconstructed the moment. The match had ended. Cody launched a physical attack, shoved Drew's face into the ring post, and then cleared an announce table in a way that wasn't meant to be theatrical or symbolic but intended to inflict real harm, to fashion the table like some grotesque culinary instrument and serve him up to it. In that instant, Drew says, he didn't stop to weigh narratives or to craft a viral moment. He reacted. He fought back. The claymore through the table, in his telling, was proportionate retaliation to an assault, an act done in response to a very real and immediate threat. He begged the audience and those who keep interrogating him to stop twisting that exchange into something else. This was not an overblown vendetta or some long-simmering jealousy finally boiling over. It was the natural conclusion to a confrontation that began when his opponent crossed a clear line. From there, the conversation turned inward to the longer arc of his career and to the parallels and divergences between his path and Cody Rhodes's. The host pointed out that the two men entered the industry around the same time, that they'd even once teamed together and captured tag gold, and that on paper their trajectories have plenty of mirrored moments. Drew acknowledged that shared history. "We were once tag champs," he said with a rueful nod, but used it to pivot into what he sees as the critical difference between their headline-making moments: context. He asked listeners to remember what the world felt like 5 years ago, the fear and uncertainty, and to recall how WWE served as a rare, stabilizing escape. During that period, Drew argues, he stepped up again and again. He became a figure people could rally around on television when there was literally nowhere else to go. He wanted to be the face of the company during the pandemic era, to be that rallying point for fans who needed a hero, and he says he gave every ounce of himself to that role. But gratitude, he implied, is a fickle thing. When the dust settled and he needed the fans and the company to reciprocate, to show that the sacrifices he made mattered, he felt the support evaporate. Where he had poured himself into the product, he says, people moved on quickly. He reflected bitterly on the period after Hell in a Cell, when he bled in the ring and was out of action for months. In that downtime, he says he had time to look clearly at how his life had been paced around the industry. Those months away and the physical and emotional cost of those bouts forced him to reckon with the possibility that 2 decades of sacrifice had not been repaid with the recognition or loyalty he expected. That realization, he says, was devastating. He had poured his life into the business. He had sacrificed family time and personal peace to be the man in the spotlight, and when push came to shove, he felt abandoned. That's why, he explained, he arrived at the conclusion a lot of retired or inactive performers come to much later in life, that if you don't actively seize what is owed to you, it may simply be given to someone else. There was a rawness to his confession. He admitted to feeling like he'd wasted 20 years, fighting not for himself, but for an idea of what wrestling should be, and now he was done waiting for someone else to validate that work. Instead of pleading for chances, he wanted to take what he believed was rightfully his. The championship, he clarified, is not merely a coveted accessory or a line in his resume. It's a corrective. It's not about entitlement or vanity. By his telling, it's about reclaiming the years and effort he's invested. "It's not what I want," he said. "It's what I need," and then offered the catch that makes his argument personal rather than philosophical. It's not just about deserving the title in the abstract. It's about what Drew McIntyre has earned through perseverance, pain, and relentless work. When the interviewer suggested that some viewers might simply call his behavior jealousy, an easy shorthand, the sort of tidy explanation that lets people avoid deeper questions, Drew pushed back hard. He urged anyone skeptical to look him in the eyes and see the truth there. He insisted that there was nothing in him that looked toward Cody Rhodes with envy. He challenged the camera to zoom in, to analyze his stare, to find in it the clear-eyed honesty. he claimed to possess. That said, he didn't deny that the two men's ambitions have clashed. He took aim at Cody not in the form of petty bitterness, but in the form of indictment. He accused Rhodes of being a habitual liar and a manipulator, someone who has perfected the art of narrative control to his advantage. He pointed listeners to Cody's own admissions, to appearances on podcasts and in interviews where, Drew contends, Cody has admitted to bending the truth, and used that to build a case that Rhodes is comfortable operating in an arena of calculated half-truths and image management. Drew coined a clipped phrase about that tendency, suggesting Cody has a kind of compulsive relationship with deceit, and he used it to argue that Rhodes's greatest priority is the WWE Championship and his own image, everything else trailing in his wake. The crux of Drew's critique is that Cody learned a political, almost surgical way of operating within the company. He knows how to curry favor, how to strategically remove obstacles, how to craft alliances, and how to cut those closest to potential power from the path when needed. Cody's rise, in Drew's eyes, is a product not just of talent and opportunity, but of a willingness to play the internal chess game with a cold efficiency that Drew sees as disingenuous. When asked if he himself shares that single-minded hunger for championship glory, Drew was refreshingly candid. Yes, he is equally ruthless about attaining the top prize, but the important distinction is honesty. Where Cody, according to Drew, masks ambition with charm and manipulation, Drew says he wears his desire on his sleeve. He does not pretend to be anything other than what he is, a man who wants to be the champion and who is paid dearly for the chance to do so. That honesty, he argued, is a moral difference. I tell the truth, he said. I'm not a carefully crafted character. This distinction, Drew insists, is central to why he's perceived differently in the locker room and among fans. He refuses the political games. He refuses to manufacture narratives for personal benefit, and because of that he becomes an easier target. He accused Cody of trying to turn people against him precisely because Rhodes recognizes Drew as a true threat, someone who will not be gaslight or outmaneuvered. Rhodes, Drew suggested, has had his chances handed and constructed by social maneuvering, while Drew has repeatedly endured setbacks. Screwed, screwed, screwed. He put it bluntly and still comes back demanding nothing more than a